everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best prices, inventory, and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Good day.
Ruben Bressler.
How are you? Happy, am I allowed to call it what by its name? I think it's the Big Game Day.
Oh,
or else we'll get sued. We'll get sued by the National Football League.
That's right.
Consent.
I've already muted the hashtags in preparation, so I'm ready.
We're also, to be fair, we're also recording this on a Monsters Inc. holiday.
That's true. It's also Janet
23.
Jackson.
It's 2319. We got a 2319. Evan.
Oh, nice.
It's also Janet Jackson Appreciation Day. People still have their feelings, and I'm always happy to celebrate Miss Jackson if you're nasty.
The real question was it intentional? That's the question.
Who cares? How is it that her career went downhill and then Justin Timberlake?
Thank you. And can we talk about how bad his show was last year? Like, I was watching from Spain, and I was cringing, and I was like, oof.
I don't watch that stuff anymore. You can catch all the commercials on YouTube. Like
exactly.
Whatever.
I don't watch for the halftime show. I usually watch for the commercials. When the dude showed up in a Stella Artois commercial, I gave up on that.
Our toys.
That's what he calls it in the commercial.
I know.
It's
Carrie
pretty
Bradshaw
bad.
was with him.
I am aware. That one I'm less pissed about because I think that she'd sell out. I don't think maybe the dude would sell out. Maybe the dude would make Patreon content. I don't know.
You can't sell out until there's somebody to buy in. Am I right?
That's true.
Look, we also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most luxuriant and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Ravnica Allegiance cards. Ruben?
Well, we had a couple of finalists. I had a lot of people who were upset at me specifically, a little bit at Aaron because of the combo with Living End, but mostly me, upset with me about Electro Dominance, which I honestly didn't realize was a card for like a long time in the set. But the winner this week is actually our most popular entry in terms of cards we've missed. And I decided to go with Goldstorm 07. No love for one of my favorite new commanders in about 5 years, Teysa Karlov. Functions as a panharmonicon for death triggers, opening up a massive new realm of tactics for white-black players, including some dramatic plays with Aaron's Priest of Forgotten Gods. The community love for this incarnation of Teysa is strong. Over on EDH Rec, you can see she's the most popular legend in the set, with a ton of articles and builds that vary from sacrifice-focused to token swarm. She may not do anything significant in 60-card constructed, unless our potent combo surfaces, but Commander is going to love her.
Absolutely.
It's tricky. There's just so many versions of Teysa. You know, I'm a big fan of Envoy of Ghosts. It's just whatever you're into. You know, I like to think of it as, you know, us not forgetting her. I like to think of, you know, there's just other possibilities, and you know, she's other people's cup of tea, and that's fine. So
for those who don't know, Teysa Karlov is white, black, and 2 generic mana for a 2/4 rare legendary human advisor. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Creature tokens you control have vigilance and lifelink. So if you're making Afterlife, it's giving them vigilance and lifelink, and then it's making double the Afterlife because Teysa's sticking around. Things get out of hand.
It's like a lot of work, though. Like, at least with middle Teysa, you just slam her and you're like, whoop. And then with this one, you have to like do things. And it's like,
This is, well, the fact that there's no free sacrifice outlet this time around, the fact that she costs 4, like there's definitely little things they could have tweaked.
Oh, there's things holding her back in standard for sure. I would rather be running Elenda the Dusk Rose at this converted mana cost in my Aristocrat style decks.
but even in a commander deck, it's just like work, you know?
I do like commanders that you can have multiple different builds of. This is one of the reasons why Atraxa is so interesting, is because you can have Planeswalker Atraxa, you can have Pure and Toothy Atraxa, you can have, you know, there's all these different kinds of charge counter Atraxa. Teysa, you can have tokens, you can have Aristocrat, you can have all these different types of different kinds of decks to go with Teysa. Unfortunately, I misread Teysa as recently as yesterday. I thought that it caused the triggered ability of any permanent dying. So I sacrificed my ill-gotten gains expecting to 8 my opponent, and it didn't work because I didn't read the card, because reading the card explains the card.
Yeah, I think if I didn't have my She-Ray deck, I might be more interested in her, but it's like I already have something that does sort of aristocrat things. I try not to make the same deck twice.
Right. Shirei's great. Also, the most attractive thing about Teysa is that you get to run Smothering Tithe, which that card is the truth in Elder Dragon Highlander.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
That card is
Very,
very, very good. That said, congratulations to Goldstorm07. You have won a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. Please contact us on our subreddit. Contact the moderators. Contact
most
original.
likely me.
Contact original hosts on Twitch.
Ain't lying.
It's fine. Yes, but she'll make sure you get that code to get you the gift certificate. And thanks again, of course, to Cool Stuff Inc. for sponsoring that giveaway. But let's get talking about our top 10 converted mana cost creature cards. Yes, we are going to slice and dice every Magic card into weird little categories and put numbers on them.
Well, I think
this is not even that weird.
It's not that weird, but
I think ones and twos have historically been the ones. Like I think having a potent one drop can make or break certain archetypes, specifically when it comes to tribal strategies.
Mm-hmm.
You look at zombies and standard, and people were waiting for that new what's the one drop going to be? What's the one drop going to be? And until we got Crypt Breaker, who may or may not be on our list, the deck wasn't valid.
Absolutely.
Catcher was a thing too, where Merfolk had a lot of the pieces, but when you have a potent one drop, that changes everything.
Absolutely. And when you have one drops that do similar things together in standard or in modern, decks like Soul Sisters take off because you have two Soul Wardens.
Redundancy.
Decks like Llanowar Elves, Arbor Elf in standard for that 3-month period. Really helps out. And so it's a key part of many, many, many different types of decks. And the rarity, really, over the history of Magic, there's like 20,000 individual Magic cards that have ever been printed. 775 of them are one-drop creatures. There are not that many.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry, if you're watching this at home, I wouldn't worry that we're going to go too deep. Like, we're probably not going to make it to like 4 drops, but I think for 1 and 2s, there are a lot of historically powerful in the 1 and 2 slot that I think are fun to talk about.
Smash cut to our top 10 converted mana cost for creatures.
Converted mana cost 4 multicolored with buzz cut haircuts. Tune in.
Right. What are your favorite 5 mana 4/3s?
Let's get started here with number 10.
I don't know about that.
Ruben, why don't you kick us off with your number 10? And probably, I think, this is the most lists that I think help with. What were you thinking when you chose your top 10?
Right. Well, people often ask, Ruben, what are you thinking? Just not in this context. Fortunately, we don't have to start out inside of Ruben's brain, which is a dangerous and messy place because number 10 is higher on someone else's list.
That's the go-to Ruben strategy right
That's
there.
Right. Yeah, let somebody else go first. I'll have my opening acts do some stuff for me before I start talking.
There you go. Aaron, what's your number 10?
So back when Shadows over Innistrad was being revealed, there was a lot of talk about Modern Dredge and that we were going to get some toys. And a lot of the focus was put on, Prized Amalgam. And then, later on there was Cathartic Reunion and things of that nature. But people forget this card that, gave you an ability to literally start dredging on turn 1. You can play Faithless Looting and put dredgers into the yard, but you're not actually dredging right away. And this card not only gave you a body, but gave you the ability to do that. And also make some really neat shenanigans depending on what you flip. My number 10 is Insolent Neonate. So Insolent Neonate is 1 red. It's a 1/1 creature type vampire from Shadows. It has Menace, which is surprisingly relevant in some matchups. And you can discard a card, sacrifice Insolent Neonate to draw a card. So if you had Grave Troll in your hand, you could literally play this Grave Troll, sacrifice it, and dredge 6 on turn 1. And if you happen to hit a Narcomoeba, you could do Narco Prized Amalgam. You could do this on turn 1. You could have 5 power on turn 1. Just whoop. You could have a dredger in the yard. There were so many neat things that you could pick. If you played anything spicy like the Vengevine versions of bridges, you could just sacrifice this for a bridge and whoop, here's some tokens. And it's the card that a lot of people didn't think about when they talk about how powerful Modern Dredge is. And this card really did change the game for us.
Wow. I mean, it is very powerful. It's really neat when you do things, what's usually sort of felt as backwards, when you discard and then you draw the card, that kind of, what do they call it, rummaging for red, essentially.
Yes, instant speed.
Yeah. All of a sudden, whenever you want it. And of course, there was Madness in Shadows over Innistrad, which was really cool. Shadows is like, just sort of looking in the rearview mirror.
Really cool.
Yeah, really neat. I almost underappreciated in many ways. I think we were so desperate to get the original Innistrad back, we kind of stopped noticing what was really cool about Shadows.
Yeah, we missed the forest for the trees.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Really, really cool effect that we've never had before. Again, being able to do it on turn 1 is a huge deal. And yeah, it was just a really cool card. I also really appreciate Magic goes through cycles of using words that I think are interesting, and there was a period there where they started using neonate. They must have had a lot of Vampire the Masquerade designers in at the time. Because we had the '03 neonate from Corset, and we had this card and a couple others, I think. Really also just spectacularly flamboyant art for this one. Really Ventru-ish in the
I mean, that's a
art.
pose.
Come on, White Wolf.
Maybe more Toreador actually for
That's
this particular.
good. No. Evan has no.
Man, you
Evan has no
I'm
idea what's happening.
too southern for what is
Go read Vampire the Masquerade. V5 just came out, so you can.
Oh boy, V5, V4 was incredible. Okay,
It was. Evan, how dare you?
I have the benefit of being able to go back and instantly figure out how many times I may or may have not listed something on a top 10, because I have all the documents, of course, where we talk about the list and stuff. So
You have the receipts?
oh, I got the receipts because this time.
Yikes, I got to make some phone calls. I'm about to get audited.
Oh my God, this is the 4th time I've talked about this card, and I don't care. I really don't care because
Evan's got no range. No range.
0. And this is a card that was on my top 10 white cards. It was in my top 10 Masters 25 cards. It was in my top 10 vanilla creature cards. And now it's in my top 10 1 CMC cards.
I know what it is.
Because you can't get away from my memories with Magic, how I started out with Magic, the creatures that I loved, the artwork that I loved, and not be Savannah Lions. Savannah Lions went the long tumble to common. Common, I'm telling you. 16-year-old me would have called you a liar. No way they ever make this a common creature. That's insane. Whereas today, our Savannah Lions have to be way better than Savannah Lions to even be considered playable. Sometimes like, oh, that's just a limited 1-mana 2/1. And it's like, what? That's a what? I don't get it. But Savannah Lions, 1 white mana for a 2/1 creature cat. Showed up in Alpha, as it should be. One of my favorite creatures from the very beginning. One of the cards that I felt like, it's not necessarily the best, the most lauded, but it's important. It's certainly important to me. And that's where a lot of these cards fall. So that was my number 10, is Savannah Lions.
Oh, man. Yeah, when you look at the power level, even going through this list, I found cards in Weatherlight. There was a card that was like something elephant. It was 1 green, a 3/3. And
Rogue Elephant.
Rogue Elephant.
It's like, in subsequent sets, how quickly it took for the power creep to set in, and how it didn't take long for Savannah Lions to get outclassed.
Yeah. Well, Rogue Elephant had a steep drawback. I do remember playing Rogue Elephant and Harvest Worm together in like a green stompy deck. But yeah, Savannah Lions, I mean, has been around since the beginning. My fondest memory, and really oddly specific memory of Savannah Lions, actually I have 2. One of them is that they printed an oversized promo Savannah Lions to advertise one of the core sets, and I used to have one signed by the artist with the new art.
Nice.
So that was a cool one. And the other one is when I very first started playing Magic, and I used to go to a store called Darts USA in Columbus, Ohio. One of the first times I went in, maybe like the 3rd or 4th time I went to go just hang out and play Magic, one of the owners was laying out a beta set, which I look back on now and I'm like, he had a set of beta. What in the world? Someone was buying a set of beta from the store, and he was like, man, I'm missing 1 card. Somehow I have every card in beta except for a Savannah Lions.
Huh.
And 12-year-old me was like, I have a Savannah Lions. And he's like, no, that's not the one I want. It's tough to explain to a child, but
need the Black Border old one.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's terrific. And I have owned Black Border Savannah Lions back in the day. I mean, it was a rare card all the way through 9th edition. That was 2005. Mm-hmm. They felt like that was a
That's
rare
when the
level.
promo was. That's right.
Right. And I did not like the new artwork. Go back and give me that, Daniel Gellin action. Big paw coming at you. That's what I need. Savannah Lions is my number 10. Let's move on here to number 9. Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is an interesting confluence of Aaron's number 10 and Evan's number 10. My number 9 draws a card eventually. It's a white creature with a combined total power and toughness of 3. It appeared in Shadows over Innistrad and was not lauded particularly when it first came out. People did not understand the power of Thraben Inspector when it was first spoiled. And then folks like Craig Wescoe enumerated the various sundry ways that Thraben Inspector was amazing. So Thraben Inspector is a 1 white mana, 1/2 common from Shadows over Innistrad. Those common 1-drops making an appearance. Thraben Inspector is a human soldier, so 2 very relevant creature types, and has the ability, when Thraben Inspector enters the battlefield, investigate, which means that you create a colorless clue artifact token with pay 2 colorless and sacrifice this artifact, draw a card, which was surprisingly relevant. The amount of times that you play White Weenie, even now, I'm playing a lot of white aggro on the ladder of Magic Arena right now. Because it's actually has a better matchup against red now that the number of Bane Warriors has gone down.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to deal with the swarm. That 2 toughness, man. It's when they staple that extra toughness onto creatures, we know that's what got Deathrite Shaman banned. Obviously not the Planeswalker abilities, it's that extra toughness.
Oh yeah.
Thraben Inspector being able to get pumped by a +1/+1 counter, bringing it up to 2/3 stats, being able to stand in front of most bears or reflector mages. The fact that it has the relevant come into play ability, that you don't want it to get reset. Being able to replace itself in the late game if you happen to be flooded, or which in white decks is like 4 lands. You can play an Inspector, draw a card immediately, and still be able to play another Inspector if you happen to draw one. Extremely potent, powerful card. And lest we forget, we didn't know that Emrakul was coming yet. There were rumors, but we looked at a few cards. There were like 3 or 4 cards that really spelled out that it was Eldrazi. And Thraben Inspector holding up the creepy brambles of one of the Eldrazi was one of the big hints. Just a really excellent, fabulous card. One of the best cards in Hats Tribal. Shout out to Loading Ready Run. And yeah, just a lovely Magic card.
This card is often described as being as good as Mother of Runes. And those are extremely big shoes to fill. This is a big hit in Pauper as well with the Boros Monarch decks. That's a deck that does a lot of bouncing. So you want to play things where you can bounce it, get those extra tokens. And the tokens are artifacts. Those are things that there are other cards in Boros Monarch that rely on, do you have an artifact in play? Can you sacrifice an artifact? Can you bounce an artifact? And so very relevant in Pauper in particular. But yeah, this deck did a lot of work. And you wouldn't think so, but you're like, this is happening. Okay.
In 2006, they had packs of Magic cards with extra special, super special. They only spoiled it accidentally on an Adult Swim commercial, rares that were purple. And these were the time-shifted rares from Time Spot. One of them was Squire. So you would open up your pack of Magic cards, and get a special rare in the back that was 2 mana, a white and 1 mana for a 1/2 with 0 abilities. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how far we've come. Not only does it have to be half the cost, it has to be able to either draw you a card on all of these abilities, be a Pauper All-Star. Like, this card was nuts. This card just was instated from the moment it was legal to the moment it was not. It saw a ton of play in all sorts of decks. Tons of cubes, for example, are like, this is a fantastic white drop.
Absolutely. And it's totally unique. I mean, card draw in white to begin with is tough to come by, especially this cheap.
Exactly. So to have a card draw attached to it, along with all the benefits of being an artifact, along with the benefits of being another permanent, sometimes matters. Thraben Inspector was absolutely terrific from start to finish. But Aaron, what's your number 9?
Ruben said recently that he's been interested in persistent petitioners, I believe they're called, the blue clerics from their cleric advisors. Advisors. The blue advisors from Ravnica Allegiance that let you mill. And you mentioned that you like cards that say, you can have as many copies of these, in your library or whatever.
I do like that.
There's not many cards that really have that text on them, but my number 9 does. And I don't love it necessarily for that text specifically, but I love the trope or the cliche of, the clerics or the apostles sort of sacrificing themselves to bring a big vicious demon into play. And we've actually seen this once before. There was another 1-drop cleric that could get a specific demon. It was from an older set. I don't remember which one. But how about being able to get any demon? That's pretty hot. My number 9 is Shadowborn Apostle. Shadowborn Apostle is from Magic 24 core set. It's 1 black. It's a 1/1 human cleric. A deck can have any number of cards named Shadowborn Apostle. You can sacrifice 6 creatures. So for 1 black, you sacrifice 6 creatures named Shadowborn Apostle. Search your library for a demon creature card, anyone you want, and put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. One of the top decks on Tapped Out for She-Ray is like She-Ray, 30 of these, some swamps, and some demons.
Yep.
Because if you sacrifice them all to She-Ray, they all come back. And so every turn, you can just be tutoring demons if you want to. This is a $4 to $5 common.
Yeah.
Look, this is the part where just go take $100 right now. Go buy every persistent petitioner you can for that $100, okay?
Yeah.
Put it in a box. Don't look at it for 2 years. Come back and
or
profit.
build three different EDH decks.
Yeah, the only real demon of note in standard at this time was Shadowborn Demon, which was fine. But think about it in older sets. You can get a Runescar Demon. You can get an Archfiend of Despair. You can get Lord of the Pit if you wanted to for the low cost of a bunch of 1/1s. Like, it's really quite neat.
Oh, it's really cool. Again, this is a $4 common. I can't handle it. Like, I think Persistent Petitioners is like down to $1.50 right now. Just because these are the types of cards you just can't get enough of. Literally, you can't get enough of them. And that is a rare thing in Magic. And no matter how many times they print the Rats or how many times they print the Apostle, which is only once right now, or the Petitioners, gosh, those cards are just going to be gold. I mean, just get them and hold them.
Absolutely. Shadowborn Apostle had one of the most indelible moments in Game Night's history, as far as I'm aware, on the Command Zone, where Razaketh, Harvester of Souls are 2 of the best demons to go get with your Shadowborn Apostles. There are only 24 cards that are 1-mana creatures. According to my sources here on Scryfall, they cost $4 or more. Shadowborn Apostle is one of them.
Wow.
A common from a core set. There are rares. It is more expensive than Champion of the Parish. It's more expensive than Mausoleum Wanderer. It's more expensive than Quirion Ranger. It's up there.
Good times.
That's crazy. Well, moving on here to my number 9. This is one of those. This is a classic. They didn't know what they were doing. Hindsight in Magic is the ultimate, 2020. Like, it is razor sharp when you look back and you go, wow, that was dumb. That was extremely stupid. Because there became this weird thinking in Magic after a while, near the, turn of the century, as it were, where they're like, who needs a mana cost? Mana costs are stupid. Let's just not pay for anything, and we'll have all the fun ever. So I can talk about one of Ruben's favorite sets, this being Urza's Saga, where everything was just going completely haywire. What in the hell were they doing? What could you possibly be putting into play with Goblin Lackey? What in the world could you just bypass an entire converted mana in general, whatever? And Goblin Lackey is 1 red mana for a 1/1 uncommon goblin. This was uncommon, y'all. They thought this was just whatever, draftish. Whenever it successfully deals damage to a player, I like successfully.
I like it.
This is the original writing. You may choose a goblin card in your hand and put that goblin into play. So put it on the battlefield. And that turned out to be ridiculous because now, until the end of time, every time they print a goblin, Lackey puts it into play for free. And as we found, anything that has, everything printed X after this gets better. You have humans in Modern. You know what I mean? That's
Commander and...
Yeah, the original, the standard deck with this was Goblin Marshal, which was Siege Gang before Siege Gang. But you could obviously also put in Goblin Matron to go search out things. And then obviously once Onslaught came along, you had things like Ringleader and War Chief and Pile Driver, Sharpshooter, just so many goblins to be able to put onto the battlefield with Goblin Lackey. Super potent. Still, I mean, for a long time, the best pure card advantage engine in Legacy was Goblin Ringleader. Goblin Ringleader. That's the one. The 4-mana 2/2 that actually drew you cards. I mean, there were lots of ways to give you card quality, things like Brainstorm and Top, but they didn't get you more cards. So for a red 4-mana 2/2, to be able to do it was a huge deal. And obviously Lackey, who cares about 4 mana? Get out of here.
I mean, don't pay anything for your spells. This is magic. No. Let's have fun.
That's right.
I mean, and this has also led to me more or less grossly overestimating the power of Warren Instigator.
Indeed.
As that was my preview card for Zendikar. And it was a mythic rare, and it was double striking Goblin Lackey, but turns out 1 mana versus 2 mana is very important, and that's why we're not talking about the 2 CMCs today. Just talking about the 1. Yeah. So move on here to number 8. Ruben, do you have a number 8?
I do. So my number 8 is a card that's very near and dear to my heart. I played it since it was the pre-release foil. I played it all the way through its life in block, in standard. Mm-hmm. Probably my best season of PTQs. I made top 8 in like 4 or 5 PTQs, made the finals of one of them.
Weren't we playing PTQs like together back then, back in the day?
I think so. This might have been that. I don't think this was this era.
I think so. This was back in Nashville. I remember running into you a bunch.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And I also, this was when the Winter King tournament in Louisville was going on a lot, and I made the finals of a Winter King, which was like a 1,500 person standard tournament. On the back of Figure of Destiny and Friends. Go Kithkin Go. Figure of Destiny is either a red or a white mana. It's a creature, Kithkin. It's a 1/1. But it's going to grow up. Pay a red or a white, Figure of Destiny becomes a Kithkin Spirit with base power and toughness 2/2. If you pay 3 mana of those hybrid manas, if it's already a Spirit, it becomes a Kithkin Spirit Warrior with base power and toughness 4/4. And then, Super Saiyan, if you pay 6 total mana, if Figure of Destiny is a Warrior, it becomes a Kithkin Spirit Warrior Avatar with base power and toughness 8/8, flying, and first strike.
Jesus.
This card was nuts.
Absolutely crazy nuts. You would go, turn 1, gold medal stalwart, reveal your Figure of Destiny. Turn 2, play figure, level it up. Turn 3, level it up. You're attacking for 6 on turn 3, having played 2 cards. This was a staple of all of the mono red decks at the time, of the white decks at the time. Really excellent target for Ranger of Eos. It's a staple in cubes. It's one of the best cards in Eventide as a set. Just a really powerful, potent card.
This made my top 100 cards of all time. This made my top 10 Boros cards of all time. This is just ridiculous. Like, because back in the day, they would give you like the best card or one of the best cards in the set for free as your play in the pre-release. So you got a free Wurmcoil Engine and Immercool, the Eon Storm. They gave you a $50 bill for showing up to those events, which was amazing. And this is, I'll never forget being in Tazewell, Tennessee, and that is out there, y'all. And I think it was even in New Tazewell.
Oh boy.
And but they didn't have a whole lot of people show up for the Eventide pre-release, so everybody got a playset of the pre-release.
Oh boy!
Photo.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other guy, I was like, he's like, man, I don't really need these promos, and I'm like, well, I think that card's amazing, so I think I gave him $5 for his playset. It was great.
It's a good deal.
That was good, clean living back then.
Yeah.
Oh man, that said, Aaron, what's your number 8?
I have very fond memories of my number 8. I love to tell the story of the one time I was at regionals. There was an SCG regionals happening in, I think regionals or states, one of them. But I was in Madison and I was playing Modern Ad Nauseam and I was up against a mill opponent. And I've spoken lovingly about that little subsection of the community that wants mill so bad in Modern. And I was facing an opponent on mill and they got their game 1 because I just had nothing. And I was going through my sideboard cards and I was like, all right, well, a lot of their things target. So we're going to try Leyline of Sanctity. So I slam Sanctity on turn 0, and my opponent proceeds to play my number 8. And they do something, presumably to try to trigger my number 8. And I was like, can I see that for a second? And they're like, yeah. I call a judge over and I go, is that a big? And the judge goes, nope, they have to do it. And I was like, and there's nothing sweeter than attacking a mill opponent with their very own strategy, courtesy of my number 8, which is Hedron Crab. So Hedron Crab is 1 blue. It's a creature type crab. It's 0 power, 2 toughness with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So if you can't target me, you're targeting yourself. And then watching you mill your own things is delightful. This is a beloved card. A lot of people speak very highly of this card. It's a very cute card. I've been using it in my Muldrotha EDH deck where you can mill yourself because target player can be you.
Right.
So if you want to have an amazing start, you slam this on turn 1 and get the mill going. And that way, when you're ready to cast Muldrotha, you have a very stacked graveyard. And so I've been on both sides of this card. It's obviously better being on the right side, but sometimes it can be fun when you're on the wrong side and you have thing to do with you.
This card is $4.
It sure is.
Yeah,
Best $4 I ever spent.
Wizards, would you please reprint it already? It was once uncommon in Zendikar. That's it. Nothing. No dual decks. No nothing. People love mill cards. Even if, like, and this one was, I mean, fairly aggressively costed for what it did.
Yeah.
Particularly when fetch lands were in standard. Like, it actually became a thing there for a
Got
half
a nice
minute.
little butt on it. It's got a cute ability. Fetches are always a thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's adorable just as a creature anyway. Just like what it looks like, which is great. But I'm just like, my God, it is $3.50 right now. $3.50 shipping included can get you one. And that's a lot for me for just a silly little O2.
This was also a pretty popular dredge enabler for a while, to be able to target yourself with self mill. Multiple decks in the top 8 of Pro Tour. Austin had Hedron Crab as their 1-drop to be able to target themselves, because I prefer to mill myself, particularly in Elder Dragon Highlander like you. And the blue-green kind of self mill strategies are always a ton of fun. Dredgeavine,
Yeah.
things like that are super good. The start of Basic Island Hedron Crab. Second turn, Hedron Crab fetch land, mill you for 12.
That's hot fire right there. Let me tell you.
Love it.
All right. So moving on here to my number 8. This is a card that not only am I surprised. Well, actually, this is where I throw out the probably Ruben's number 10. Okay, I'm guessing it's number 10 because it's a card very much after his heart. It's very much a card that has helped define a color. It's a card that came out, and I was like, Mr. Mike Turian, for real? And he was like, it's fun. And I'm like, for real? It's a card that has not been matched since it was printed. It has only been printed in 2 sets, and it is still worth about $18 a copy. It was just a absolutely defining card. One of the cards that if you drew one of them, okay. But if you drew 3 of them, you almost never lost a game with Goblin Guide. Goblin Guide is 1 red mana for a 2/2 rare creature Goblin Scout with haste. And whenever it attacks, defending player reveals the top card of their library. If it's a land card, they put it into their hand. So this is turn 1 Goblin Guide, turn 2 Goblin Guide 6 you. Yeah. I've never lost that game. I've never lost a game where that was a sequence, like literally ever.
I've almost never lost a game where I put my opponent to 12 on turn 3 with that gold medal stalwart Figure of Destiny draw.
Yeah.
This puts him there at turn 2. Yeah. This was not my number 10.
Ooh.
Goblin Guy did not make my top 10.
Wow.
What? My apologies to the red mages out there, but I have a high bar, and one of the bars is winning a Pro Tour.
It's gotten close, hasn't it? I don't think it has, but I think it's gotten
close. It did not. It was not a very kind standard environment for Goblin Guide. It's gotten closer in modern, obviously with the red white and red green kind of burn decks. Absolutely spectacular card. It's been a promo more often than it's been printed, meaning that it's people still want copies. It's got 3 different arts. All across the various formats, first time in Zendikar, then as a Grand Prix promo, and now most recently in Modern Masters.
I didn't know that was a Grand Prix
backwards.
Yeah,
it was a Grand Prix promo for sure. Yeah, really interesting. I love the Grand Prix promo art where it's just like this, it doesn't look like it has haste or is a 2/2. It's just sort of considering its maps.
Yeah,
sitting there. Yeah, but I love Goblin Guide. It's just not on mine.
And remember, kids, if you're on the defense, you want to get that reveal trigger first before you kill it. Don't kill it because you want to know what you're getting. So
it's true. And the idea that you have a 1 mana 2 power haste anything is just a bar that have they even crossed it since then? I don't think so. Like, because they've given you like haste with prowess or whatever, but they just don't want to give you 2 power, 1 mana haste, and not really a drawback. That was the thing. Like we've seen one mana 2 power creatures, and again they didn't want to give you better than Savannah Lions for a very long time. But this was like, whoa, we are jumping forward in technology, and Goblin Guide was there to win the games for you. All right, so we're going to enter now number 7. I'm not going to be talking for a little while. Number 7 and number 6 are higher for me.
Oh.
So I'll see you guys in a couple numbers, which is fine.
My number 7 is also higher.
Oh my God, Aaron, do you have a number 7?
I do, and it's spicy. My number 7 is incredibly niche. It is a crucial piece of the Legacy Tin Fins deck, which if you don't know what it does, I don't blame you.
Nice.
I've also run 1 copy of this in my Legacy Reanimator deck. The nice thing about Grizzlebrand is being able to draw a whole bunch of cards, but eventually you run out of life and you have to actually swing with that Grizzlebrand. But against certain decks, you don't have time. Like you need to win right now, or you need to establish the right amount of reanimation targets so that you can just get a really unbeatable board state, specifically against decks like Death and Taxes, where, a Caracas can change everything, a Swords can change everything, and when the shields are down, you need to strike. And this card really, really allows you to strike, and it's a very unique ability to it. My number 7 is Children of Corliss. So Children of Corliss is 1 white, it's from Time Spiral, a human rebel cleric, a 1/1. You sacrifice Children of Corliss, you gain life equals to the life you've lost this turn. So if you have gone nuts with your Grizzlebrand and you've drained yourself for 14 and didn't quite find what you needed, you're down to like 4. You play this, you gain the 14 back, and that's more life that you can use to draw more cards with Grizzlebrand. And so ideally you want to have Grizzlebrand and Iona, or Grizzlebrand and Archetype of Endurance, which give your creatures hexproof. And so you just want the right combination of cards so that you can protect what you have. Or if you are playing Tin Fins, you just want to be able to win the game. And so it's a really neat ability that lets you just keep going. And I love this. I think it's great.
It's super neat. Niche is this is the right word. This is like, it does a very specific thing, but it does it unbelievably well. No mana cost beyond casting the creature itself. Instant speed, no problem. Was neat. I mean, even back in the day in Limited, I mean, it was just like, okay, if you're going to like swing all out, I'm just going to sack it and gain 12 or whatever, and then come back at you. So it actually helped sort of the swingy nature of the format as it could be when you got into race situations.
Good flavor text too. They really talk about the tribe of Corliss being, a proud history of self-sacrifice, Quentin Hoover with the art, just a total package right there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, Corliss being the city that the River Core was on, and you've seen Core Chance and Core Firewalker and all those different. Encore, exactly. Really interesting. And also a second copy is kind of hilarious with Grizzlebrand, as you pay 14, gain 14 with the first one, pay another 14, gain 28 with the second one.
Woo!
Yeah,
it's getting warm in here. Oh my gosh.
You can even like reanimate it. Like you pay 1 for your new children, and it's so good.
Woo. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Let's move on here to number 6. Ruben, what's your number 6?
I'm not surprised that I'm the one who has the highest of this card. I'm just disappointed. It's petty. It's petty, and it's offensive at this point. Honestly, look. I get it. I get that Deathrite Shaman has done things to you.
I don't know her.
That you can't forgive. But you need to get over it, okay? Because Deathrite Shaman is one of the very few creatures ever, much less 1-drop creatures, that has been banned in any format, much less both Modern and Legacy, running many, many formats. Standard, Modern, and Legacy. Less in Standard, but certainly in formats with any fetch land availability, was the most important card, I dare say, in the most popular archetype of a Pro Tour, in which that archetype was 25% of the field. Jund at the Jund Pro Tour that Stanislav Sivko won with eggs. Deathrite Shaman is no joke. It is a Golgari mana. Aaron. Golgari, it's black and green.
She's a traitor.
She's a 1/2 elf shaman. Tap colon, so you can respond to this ability. Exile target land from a graveyard. Add 1 mana of any color. Pay a black and tap, exile an instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. And Aaron's favorite, pay a green and tap, exile a creature card from a graveyard. You gain 2 life. So, incidental graveyard hate, 3 different abilities, making it a Planeswalker more than it is a creature. 2 toughness, allowing it to survive electrickery, which is why it was given 2 toughness. Allows it to stand in front of Goblin Lackey, which is why Goblins stopped seeing play in Legacy. Just an extremely potent, powerful, ban-worthy Magic card.
I just want you to know, Ruben, my friend Daphne didn't come to my 23rd birthday dinner, and I didn't talk to her for 4 years. So my ability to hold a grudge is unparalleled.
That says more about you than it does about Deathrite Shaman.
But I will never forget the day that this got banned. I was on a coach bus to Madison because I was taking my licensing exams for my new job, and the testing center was in Madison. And so I'll never forget, it was the morning of the banning. I was on a coach bus, and I'm tired. I'm trying to get some last minute studying in, and my phone just starts buzzing. And I'm watching the notifications go up. And it's me, so it could be anything. So I'm like, oh no, what did I say? What did I do? And I look, and it's just Deathrite. And I'm like, woo! And I was on this city bus, and I was so excited. And it was just a moment I'll never forget. I mean, the card definitely is good. It has pulled its weight. I try to at least like the cards on my list.
Nice.
And so I'm not sad to see that card go, but you are right. An undeniable power level. It is seeing play in Vintage now, because that's really where only the most powerful cards can go. When you look at just what it was able to do in Legacy, the games it just changed everything. You didn't even really need to be doing anything. As long as you just had a Deathrite or 2 out, that's the game right there. The inevitability of it, the ability to ramp, it held down creature strategies. It just did so many things for so little mana, and was effectively a planeswalker, and, was the bane of any sort of graveyard deck. And it made, Storm a little miserable. Obviously, Dredge and Reanimate had a really hard time with it. And I think the format's fine. You can't deny that the format really did open up after it was banned.
I mean, this card's ridiculous. First of all, Ruben, this was my number 7.
Okay.
So we were right there in making sure that Deathrite was part of it. Deathrite has been one of the most cited,
I accept your apology.
one of the most listed cards we've ever had.
Oh, for sure.
It was part of the top 10 most important cards in the modern era. It was part of the top 10 banned and restricted cards. It was part of the top 10 Golgari cards. Top 10 elves, if you recall us talking about them.
Why is it an elf? That's another thing that everyone was running. Even elf.
It was nuts. This card is insane. This card bought me lunch from Jerry Thompson. It was great. It did everything, but it did everything but make me a sandwich. It made me a sandwich. That's what Deathrite Shaman did.
That's awesome.
That's absolutely terrific.
It's just so good. It's unbelievably powerful. The fact that you can go fetch land, underground sea, mana elf was never fair.
Oh yeah. If you look at the check pile decks that were popular right before this card got banned, they were just piles. It was like Kolagon's Command plus Daze plus Wasteland plus Leovold, because screw you, that's why.
Because who needs mana cost when this just makes all the mana for you?
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right. Aaron, what's your number 6?
Well, to bring things back to the heroes, my number 6 is a very important piece of Legacy Dredge. Very cute little card. You obviously don't want more than one of them, but it's really great. This was a tool that we often used to fight against Deathrite. Deathrite would eat something of yours, and then you would respond by instant speed, pitching something. This has the ability of Threshold, which I'm a big fan of, and so this is just one of my favorite cards. My number 6 is Putrid Imp. So Putrid Imp is from Torment. It's a 1/1 zombie imp, 1 black. Discard a card from your hand. Putrid Imp gains flying until end of turn, which is relevant in some cases. If you have Threshold, which means that you have at least 7 cards in your graveyard, Putrid Imp gets +1/+1 and can't block. There have been times where you will just beat in with your Putrid Imps, where they may have a cage in play. Fine, I have a bunch of 2/2 flyers, and I'm going to throw them at you. It's a black creature. You can feed it to Icarid. You can sacrifice it to Therapy. You can pitch things in response. I've had people who have tried to use removal against me. Instant speed pitch a bridge feels hilarious. And you'd be surprised. There aren't many instant speed outlets like this at 1 mana. Until Neonate, there really wasn't much. And there were discussions of, can Neonate replace this? Even Stitcher Supplier, which was a recent card that came out, people were asking, is this as good as Putrid Imp? And the answer is no. But it just goes to show you how something as seemingly harmless as this can have really big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically been seen in, they did a premium deck series. If you don't recall that, they did an all foil precons, and there was a graveyard one that it was in. So it's foil there, as well as in Torment as a common. Not incredibly highly priced, which is nice. So it is affordable in that way. But it's very important. Again, it's free. You can discard at instant speed for free. And all those things together just give it that perfect package of the 1 CMC creature you want.
It's also a black creature for Icarid purposes. So if you have multiples, you can discard another copy to be able to feed your Icarid. Sees play in Dredge deck, sees play in Icarid back in the day, and saw play in Reanimator. Actually took Gadiel's Lifer, I believe, to his first Pro Tour top 8.
Nice.
With a Reanimator deck, where he was reanimating not the greatest targets of all time. Things like Rorik's Bladewing were his reanimate targets.
Take it. She's
you do what you can to get by. The creatures in that deck were Akroma, Rorik's, and Putridum. And so you got to be among good company there. Definitely one of the old guard of the graveyard-based strategy.
Very nice. All right, let's move on here to number 5. And I have one after waiting for 2 numbers.
Good.
To talk about what I want.
That's good because I don't. My number 5. My number 5 is my last hire before we move.
Well, there you go. Well, look, this is also one of those that I hope that is either number 10 or number 7 for Mr. Rubin. It's awesome when cards have nicknames. It's also awesome when they've already made 2 lists of the top 100 cards and my top 10 white cards, because there's something about Mama. Because Mama is there to hold you, protect you, to make sure you're safe. Nothing's going to happen to you because there's Mama out there. Mother of Runes is a 1 white mana, uncommon human cleric. Tap : target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. They don't do protection anymore. They don't print protection anymore, and they certainly would not give it to you at this rate. On turn 1, for the remaining of the game, you can now make sure all of your opponent is cursed to try to target anything for the remainder of it. Oh my God, Mom's insane.
This card is so annoying, and it looks harmless enough, but it really does change everything. You can use it offensively to punch through blockers. You can use it defensively to be able to block for days. It's annoying, and it's just one of those cards that you see on site and you got to kill it, because if you don't, it's gonna make things very, very difficult for you.
Yeah, you want to talk about Bolton the Bird? Kill the mom.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's popular in all manner of white weenie decks, survival decks, Rock, Maverick, Death and Taxes. It's from one of my favorite sets of all time, if not my favorite absolute set of all time, Urza's Legacy. Iconic artwork, clearly actually not on my top 10 list. I know, right?
Who are you?
I know.
Wow.
Look, man, it's tough
Mama
out here. It's Mama, I'm coming home. I love Mom.
That's right.
And the other thing about Mom is look real close at that original art. Did you notice the tiny little man on the desk?
No.
Guy on the bottom left is like a little dude writing something. That took me a long.
It took me a long time to realize that Mom was like the mother of this tiny man. I think fey creature. I don't understand what that is. But anyway, yeah, this card is spectacular. I've played a ton of this card, mostly during my Maverick days.
Right.
When I was playing a lot of Legacy, I did pretty well with Maverick.
This is also one of those cards.
Or Death Red Shaman.
This is one of those cards that leads to those great moments where you're like, can you tell me something like in Magic speak that people who don't know Magic is like, what the hell are you saying? You're like, well, after they put their mom out there, I just dismembered her. And so just solve that problem.
Yeah, plow your mom. Yeah. It was always always a good one.
Yep. Did you plow her? Did you plow his mom? Like, yeah, dude, I totally plow his mom. What was I supposed to do? Not plow his mom? You know, like, it's great. Oh my gosh. All right, Aaron, what's number 5?
It's always a nice occasion, or it's a nice thing when you see decks bust out in Vintage, because the power level is so high that it's very, very hard for decks to become even tier 2 viable, much less tier 1. And it's been a pleasure seeing Survival become a very major player in Vintage. It won Eternal Weekend Asia last year. It top-aided Eternal Weekend US. It's been a fixture on the BSL. You can regularly find it in the challenges and in the leagues. And my number 5 is part of the reason that this deck became possible. It's been a card that's been around forever, but sometimes you got to go back through your toy box and see if there's anything you might have missed. So my number 5 is Basking Rootwalla. So Basking Rootwalla is 1 green. It's from Torment. It's a 1/1 lizard. You can pay 1 and a green and give it +2/+2 until end of turn, but you can only do that once each turn. Or it has Madness 0. So if you ever discard it, you can essentially cast it for free. So enter Bazaar of Baghdad. You can discard if it's one of the cards, you're playing it for free. If you have a hollow one in your hand. A hollow one in a Basking Root Wallet is enough to get back a Vengevine at no cost. You can play 2 Root Wallas and get your Vengevines back. You play something like Survival of the Fittest, where you discard your Root Wallas to that. You're getting the free Root Walla, and whatever green card you got with Survival of the Fittest. There are games where you are paying for the activation. It's still a 3/3 body for 1 mana and an activated cost if you have to. Fun story, I was playing the other night, I was playing 2-card Monty, and I slammed a Trinisphere, and my opponent didn't quite get it, so they kept playing, and they tried to do it, and then whoop!
Yep.
And then they also walked into a defense grid, not understanding, like, I'm going to do it on your turn. Nope. And that person was not very happy with me, but it's fine. Yeah. But this card just enables broken strategies, and it's just adorable, and I love everything about it.
I hate the Madness Zone. I still think it's a mistake.
I love Madness. Like I remember.
I think Madness is kind of dope. But
I remember having to get ready for the Community Cup, and it was saying it was Vintage Masters Draft or Vintage Masters Cube or something, and Madness was a theme of the set. Let me tell you, I jammed the crap out of that because I was like, "This is my wheelhouse. This is what I know, and we're gonna run it till the wheels fall off."
I had an entire tournament where I was playing Mono Red Constructed in Time Spiral block, where I would say morph trigger or announce morph, announce madness, turn up Gathan Raiders, pay for Fiery Temper. Like you had to announce it in the right way to be able to get all the stuff. How dare you not recognize Pro Tour wins, plural, multiple wins.
Oh, I can recognize it all you want. I just still think it's a bad mechanic because it doesn't make any freaking sense. But like, you discard it, it goes to this magical realm of madness.
That's
and
right.
You can just
it sure
pluck
does.
it right out and play
and
it.
And the magical realm of madness allows you to win Pro Tours, is what it does. Ken Ho with Blue-Green Madness, probably one of the best decks to ever win a Pro Tour. Of all time. Also was a big part of Squirrel Opposition back in the day. It's been a major part of, obviously, all of the Madness Tog decks as well, the Bug Tog decks that were going for a while. Mm-hmm. And now seeing a resurgence with the Vengeful, Survival, even the Ooze combo decks are using a Basket Wall as well.
It's pretty powerful when you're free. When you're
absolutely
actual
free.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Oh my gosh. Let's move on here to number 4. I don't have one. It's higher on somebody else's list. But that's a good thing, because it's a very, very good Magic card. That said, Ruben, what's your number 4?
All right. Finally, I'm going to talk about a red card.
Oh, here we go.
A mono red card. Well, I talked about Figure of Destiny, but that was mostly in the Kifkin context.
Evan.
Now, it's time for a red card, right? It's time for some burn. And you got to talk, when you talk about creatures that go in those red decks, creatures that have the clout, the gravitas of the red decks, you got to talk about Grim Lavamancer first and foremost. I think it's been there since Torment, making a lot of appearances on the list. Torment is Grim Lavamancer, again using the graveyard, not interacting with yours, Aaron. So a little bit inoffensive, allowing to turn your graveyard into a resource. This was Deathrite Shaman before Deathrite Shaman was really Deathrite, in terms of that second of the 3 abilities. Grim Lavamancer is a 1/1 for a red mana. It's a human wizard, originally from Torment, reprinted in Magic 2012, been printed a couple times as promos, and it has the following ability. Pay a red and tap and exile 2 cards from your graveyard. Grim Lavamancer deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Very popular as a way to reuse all of those extra lava spikes and lightning bolts and fetch lands that you put into your graveyard to be able to get some extra oomph out of everything, using every part of the buffalo. Even to this day, most burn decks will use 1, maybe 2 Grim Lavamancers as sort of their final creatures, and then extras in the sideboard against other creature strategies, things like elves or Collected Company decks or what have you. Mm-hmm. Grim Lavamancer, just an extremely powerful, potent card. I like the original art better than the Magic 2012 art, but you know what? I'll take what I can get, because this card is
popular sideboard card in the modern Jund lists. Jund really likes to 1-for-1 you, and so being able to, have that repeatable way to get rid of infect creatures and elves and dorks and other things like that is really in Jund's wheelhouse. And so I've certainly used it in that capacity. Really, really good card. I do like the flavor text and the lore, the idea of like digging within the earth, you're digging in your graveyard, which is earth, to get the fuel. I love everything about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a card that's still worth like $9, even though it hasn't been in standard in years and years. It still sees that old eternal play. This is a card that, like, it's in every cube. This is a card that gives you reach And reach is often very difficult for red decks. And this one's just like, use whatever you got in that graveyard, no matter what it is. I'll burn it up and I will throw it at them. Note it's been updated. It's any target. You can hit, of course, planeswalkers as well if you want to. And yeah, this is one of those cards that if they were to reprint it in a standard set, it would instantly be a 4 of in whatever red, honestly, red, Jund, mid-range. Like, this is a card that goes in a lot of decks because of how versatile it happens to be. It is terrific. I don't know if I would put it above Goblin Guide personally, but whatever.
Hey,
the strokes are different.
It has significantly more top 8s. It has significantly more high-level finishes. It has much more range in that it's been printed multiple times and has been a force in standard multiple times. I think that Grim Lavamancer is deserving of the spot here.
And I have to give you crap over it. It's fine.
Okay.
Aaron, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is probably the most #on-brand card on my list. I mentioned earlier in the show that certain strategies live or die, particularly die, by their 1-drops. And this is a card that defined a deck in Standard, in Innistrad Standard. And when we went back to Innistrad, people were searching for those same tribal strategies. Are we going to have zombies? Are we going to have werewolves? And there were the elements of a zombie deck for a while, but we needed that 1-drop. And I remember when Cryptbreaker came out, it was cute and it gave zombies what they needed, but they were like, well, it's no Gravecrawler. My number 4 is Gravecrawler. So Gravecrawler is from Dark Ascension. It's a creature type zombie. 2/1, 2 power, 1 toughness. Gravecrawler can't block. You may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. I love this trope of the zombie with no legs, because you see it in zombie movies. Zombies are often missing eyes and arms, but a lot of times you see that zombie that just is kind of crawling and is still terrifying. And this really, really embodies that. The flavor of the zombie that can't block because it doesn't have the legs or the stability to do that, but can still attack you, can still crawl in there, and the ability to keep coming back. It is not difficult if you're playing a zombie deck to have another zombie, and you can do shenanigans with that. We were in a format that had things like Tragic Slip, so you would oftentimes just run your Gravecrawler in there, get your Morbid trigger, and then you already have a zombie out, and just bring it back. It really enabled some really, really cool strategies, being able to feed it to things like Falcon Wrath Aristocrat was a thing. This was just a really, really good era in zombie tribal. Is still almost an $8-9 card. Sees play in other decks as well. I know a lot of the Bomberman strategies sometimes like to play with this in Legacy. Black-white taxes decks and Modern like to play around with this card. A lot of really, really nice uses, and there's just been nothing like it ever since.
I mean, because it was so freaking strong.
The
card was good. I mean, and not just like one of those where you could pay a black and put it onto the battlefield or whatever. Like, casting sometimes matters, and actually casting spells sometimes matters, and all that stuff just kind of keeps fueling this card over and over again. And it has no legs. It has no legs.
I mean, extremely powerful in the blue-black zombies, the Rakdos aggro deck that was popular at the time. Really good it made a top 8 in Legacy in the hands of Sam Black, I believe, with the zombie bombardment deck. It's a part of the Infinite Rooftop Storm combos that you can pull off in Commander sometimes. Just an extremely powerful, potent zombie.
Very nice. All right, let's move here to number 3. We still have 3 holes in Ruben's hires list. Okay,
we do.
All 3 are not there. I have a feeling.
You're 0-2 so far.
You've been wrong before. Right.
Like, Lord knows. I mean, who'd have thought the Red Mage guy didn't like Goblin Guide as his one CMC? It's fine, whatever. But it's not often, again, that you have top 10 blue cards, top 10 most important cards in the modern era, top 10 pauper cards, top 10 wizards, top 10 flavorful. Delver of Secrets, ladies and gentlemen, is a card that does not stop. I made an entire Forgotten Lore episode about how this card was revealed, everyone's reactions to it, how it first showed up on camera. You should Google that and check it out if you haven't, because it was super fun to take a look at where the lore came from, of course, the story of the fly and all that. Delver of Secrets, of course, showed up in Innistrad. It is a common human wizard for 1 blue mana. It is a 1/1 that at the beginning of your upkeep, you will look at the top card of your library. You may reveal it. If an instant or sorcery card is revealed this way, you will transform it into the Insectile Aberration, which is a flying 3/2 human insect. And Lord knows I've said a lot about Delver of Secrets. There's so much goodness going on and it's funny because no matter, again, the hindsight, so 2020, but the hindsight was everyone thought this card was like a joke. Everyone was just like, what are you doing? You're never going to trigger this. This is silly. It's ridiculous. I mean, just the same type of thinking that had Deathrite Shaman buying me a sandwich is the same type of thinking that got Delver of Secrets on a Legacy event, and they're going like, what is that? Is that the blue card from Innistrad? What does that do again? When it first shows up on camera, and it's hilarious.
I mean, a level of dominance across formats that I've never seen before. Standard, modern, legacy, vintage, pauper, at least 5 formats. Not many cards can say that they've impacted the game on a level that Delver of Secrets has. And it's just wild when you think about it.
And it's one of your 3 hires, Ruben?
It is. Delver of Secrets was my number 7.
Nice. Got there. All right. Didn't get there on the Goblin. I'll take it there.
Now, it didn't win a Pro Tour. It didn't. It did not win a Pro Tour. It's not in the Vintage Cube.
Huh.
It is not particularly expensive. It's still a common. So, you know, if you can name the most expensive blue 1-drop creature, I will give you $1. If you can, I'll give you a hint. The third most expensive blue 1-drop creature is Hedron Crab. Number 2 is Gale Rider Sliver.
Why?
So that's the randomness that we're at with blue 1-drops. So if you can name the
I would
most,
say Curse Catcher.
Nope.
No?
It's the 4th most expensive 1-drop that exists, and it's called Merchant Ship.
Oh, is that a dark card?
Antiquities.
Antiquities. Oh, okay.
I think this is this is Arabian Nights. Sorry, Arabian Nights.
Oh, it was Arabian Nights. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
it's on the reserve list.
You're welcome for that.
Because the reserve list exists. Whatever.
Yikes. Okay.
So silly. All right. Let's move on here to Ruben. What is your number 3?
My number 3, so there's a lot of clout of the different colors and the types of 1-drop that they create. Red has a very specific motif with its 1-drops. And the red decks often lean on what the 1-drop is that is standard. Same with the zombies decks, as we referenced earlier. You really need to have that 1-drop to be able to punch through. Mono white, you need that 1-drop, but perhaps no standard format shifts and changes more than when green has the right 1-drops. Mm-hmm. And the right 1-drop over the history of Magic probably is Noble Hierarch. It is, it checks all the boxes. It's won a Pro Tour. It's in the cube. It is super expensive even to this day, even though it's been printed a bunch with Ultimate Box Toppers and Judge Gift cards over $100 and regular printings somewhere in the $50 range as well. And sees play across a number of different archetypes because Noble Hierarch is a 1 green mana human druid. It's an 0/1, and it has Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Tap, add a green, white, or blue mana to your mana pool. Being able to fix your mana for 3/5 of the colors, as well as provide a power bonus to attackers in your deck, means that it sees play in humans. It sees play in survival. It sees play in infect. It sees play in Maverick. It won a Pro Tour in, I believe, in Mythic, and then also in Naya Lightsaber. Next Level Bant used to play this card. Zoo played this card. Doran played this card. All Elves plays this card, even though it's not an elf itself. Bant Conscription. All of these various decks. Infect, as we mentioned before. It's just an absolutely powerhouse card. It's no surprise that it is still commands the price tag that it wants to this day.
And it also serves as a win condition. Sometimes you have seen people, crafty infect players will just pump your Noble Hierarch and get there.
Right.
Card's incredibly annoying. Another one of those cards on the kill it right away list. You got to Dark Blast it. You got to do something because they pair well in multiples. If you happen to have 2, well, there's some Exalted triggers for you. And so, it's good in multiples. It's good on its own. It's just such a versatile card and just super annoying. And the value just never seems to go down. And in fact, it always feels like right after they reprint it, a resurgence comes out that makes it more popular. Like I remember recently they reprinted it, and I think that's when humans started picking up steam.
Yeah.
And some people were like,
yeah.
oh, it might be affordable. Whoops, now it's in a tier 1 deck again. And then it kind of dies again. And then Spirits becomes a thing. And it's like, it's just never going to stay down.
Once again, Ruben and I are very close. This was my number 4. Just right behind your choice. Because if you go to just looking at a deck database and searching for every first place list that Noble Hierarch has been in it, and this being SCGs, and this is rough numbers, this probably isn't exact, but it's close. First of all, you have to go through 23 pages of results before you stop seeing first place listings.
Wow.
Which is an estimation of around 575 first place showings for Noble Hierarch. This card is unbelievably good. Like this was the time where I got to go on the Magic Cruise with Mike Turian and go like, Mike, for real, what is happening in my life?
How many times have you asked him that question?
A lot, really. And it's just one of those things where it's like, for me, at least sort of, you know, as I've played Magic and seen how things have adapted, usually it's about safeguards, right? Usually it's about you don't want to go too far. Don't give them this. Don't give them all that. Why are you making this thing so big? Why are you making that thing draw you so many cards or whatever? And when you see them just go like, well, we're moving these boundaries. You know, we're picking up this fence here. We're moving it over here as to what a 1-drop can do, what a mana creature looks like, what a mana creature can do by itself for just 1 mana. And wow, Noble Hierarch just was incredible and just pushed all the boundaries. And we made a whole Grand Prix with, you know, featuring her likeness, which was awesome at SCG, which was fun. And that art hasn't changed, I think, because it's just fantastic and perfect the way it is. This is just
They
a card
tried
that
changing it. They changed it once, and then they changed it back because it was so good the first time.
Did they change it for the...
There was a promo that they printed.
There was a Magic Online promo, it appears. They never actually printed it in paper, though. At least best I can figure. Oh, no, there was a Pro Tour promo. That's right.
There's a Pro Tour promo, yeah.
Pro Tour promo. And even then, it doesn't really matter. It's like a $60 card no matter how you slice it, and it's only going up. Because Noble Hierarch is just fantastic. Aaron, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a card that I would point to if somebody wanted to know what black meant as a color. If somebody wanted to understand black, I would point to this card. This is another card that doesn't stay down for long. It has yo-yoed in Modern specifically as being really, really good, and then it kind of fades a little bit, and then it comes roaring back. And recently, there was a Pro Tour where we got to see the pros playing Legacy, and several players from Channel Fireball showed up with this deck in Legacy. And I remember playing at Eternal Weekend this past year in November, and I faced several people at the Legacy Challenge who were playing this deck. And this deck opened up a lot of doors for people who maybe wouldn't have been interested in playing Legacy, but now they are. My number 3 is Death Shadow. So Death Shadow is 1 black. It's from World Way, creature type Avatar, 13/13. Death Shadow gets -X/-X, where X is your life total. So many lines of play with this card. I actually picked up the Pro Tour deck shortly after. I've always fantasized about playing Death Shadow, but never really got around to it. I always felt like I kind of missed my window in Modern, but I wanted to kind of get in there towards the beginning as it was catching on in Legacy. And I had so much fun with this. Like just trying to come up with the crazy ways that you could hurt yourself. Thoughtseize, pay it, fetch, sure, that's fine. Shock, even better in Legacy. But they were running main deck reanimates. They were running 2 copies because the dream, and in LSVs, I'll never forget, he wrote the guide for this. He was like, your ideal turn 1 is to cycle a Street Wraith, pay 1 to reanimate it, and have it reanimated Street Wraith on turn 1. Yeah. And I was like, I'm in. But there were just so many neat ways of like, you'd want to snuff out yourself. You'd want to, you know, reanimate something of your opponents that you don't even care about just as a way to get the life down. And the Thoughtseizes and everything else. I had so much fun with this deck. And I'm still not sure if I would ever do it in Modern per se, but I enjoyed it a lot in Legacy. It got a lot of people to play Legacy, and it's just so black. I just love it.
It's really incredible how, first of all, this card just flew under the radar for so many years. Yeah. So many years, no one cared about it. It was dumb. It was weird. Why is this thing even in World Wake of all the sets type stuff? And then slowly but surely, you started seeing lists show up and more of the deal yourself damage for benefits, usually, you know, Kraken for Thoughtseize or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it was just brilliant to see what pros could do in Legacy where they're like, okay, we're gonna use watery graves now in Legacy because we got to get max life loss, and that is fantastic. I love everything about Death Shadow decks and how they make things just totally different and totally weird compared on any other deck. Yeah,
absolutely.
Axis.
Anything that can make reanimate a value card instead of a combo card is okay in my book.
So good.
I love it. This was my number 6. Because I feel like it's not necessarily top 5 for me personally, but I definitely think it's top 10 in terms of like, this is a 1-drop you need to know. You need to understand how everything's like kind of weird when it comes to Death Shadow, and that's what makes it great.
And let's not forget, Andy Probasco recently took it to the VSL and didn't do too bad. I think it went 2-1, which is
pretty good.
Very nice. All right, so let's move here to number 2. I don't have one because somebody's got it as their number 1, and that's fine. I know who it is. For other reasons, which we'll talk about. But, Ruben, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is going to get Evan to yell at me because it's not Goblin Guide.
Is this me? Is this the carrion feeder as the number 1 zombie yelling?
Maybe. This is... It's not quite Leviathan as the number 2 finisher. It's not quite... I think that this is a much more defensible choice because I think that one of my bars is winning a Pro Tour.
Yeah,
that you have to be on my lists. You have to like check off a couple of boxes. You got to win a Pro Tour. You got to be in the Vintage Cube. You have to have seen a ton of top 8 play across multiple formats, including Legacy, which Goblin Guide doesn't see as much play in Legacy as my number 2. It has to have been a dominant force in multiple formats. This card helped get Treasure Cruise banned. It's not been banned before itself, but it did help another card get banned. And because it's an uncommon, it's not super expensive like Goblin Guide is. But Monastery Swiftspear is, to me, the iconic red 1-drop now. Originally from Khans of Tarkir, Monastery Swiftspear is a 1 red mana 1/2 with haste and prowess. All of your bolts suddenly get extra damage. All of your spells in your blue-red tempo decks, which were dominant for a while, get you extra damage. In your Atarka red deck, Martin Dang won a Pro Tour with 4 copies of Monastery Swiftspear. Still a powerhouse in burn in Modern. Boros aggro, the Teamer, which was basically a blue-red Delver deck that had Tarmogoyfs in it. Just all over the place. It's been a powerhouse ever since it was printed. It finally got another reprinting in Iconic Masters, so in case you needed extra copies, because if you're running this card, you need 4 of them. And so Monastery Swiftspear, I think, well deserving of the number 2 slot.
Yeah, card is incredibly annoying. You can't Dark Blast it. There's so many ways to, you don't even have to really try to trigger the prowess. We talk about that with a lot of the cards that we're fans of. How much work do you have to put into actually getting it going? And you're just doing what you would normally be doing. This was also a card in the what used to be called Suicide Blue decks, where you would play the Thing in the Ice. You'd play a Kiln Fiend. How big can you get it? And sometimes you can just win the game, which is this.
Man, you just sold out Goblin Guy, man. He was the OG.
You traded him in for a younger model.
Yeah,
it was not. First of all,
she's pretty. She's fast. She's
calling Goblin Guide OG, I think, is a bit of a stretch. I think if I had put Jackal Pup in this slot, you wouldn't have been upset with me.
No. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily been upset with anyone because you have arguments for whatever you like about them. Yeah. And even Jackal Pup's kind of neat in his own right, but I don't know. It just feels like if the Goblin Guys versus the Swiftspear, Goblin Guide should get some nod.
Sure, win a Pro Tour and get back to me.
Number 2? All right, it's fine. Whatever.
I was going to put a red creature this high on the list, and I think that Swiftspear and Lavamancer are more emblematic to me of red over the history.
Fair enough. Aaron, what's number 2?
So we've covered a lot of 1/1s, some 1/2s, but now we're going to get that big deck energy. We're going to get we have the Death Shadows. I want to go bigger. The first time I ever encountered this card, I certainly encountered it in my childhood, but the first time I encountered it as a grown woman, I was at a Legacy event down at Nerd Rage Games, and a young man played a card called Illusionary Mask. Try reading the Oracle text on that, baby. And I was just like,
I would prefer not to.
It's so old, I had to ask if it was Legacy legal. And the judge comes over, and even the judge was like, good question. So the judge looks it up, and even the judge is like, yeah, it's legal. And I'm like, okay, what are we dealing with here? We're at a competitive 5K. This isn't the event you'd think someone would bring nonsense. And then they proceed to play a card face down. And I'm like, oh, this is like a morph thing. Like, that's cute. It's fine. And then, whoop, suddenly I have a 12/12 Trampler staring me dead in the face. My number 2 is Phyrexian Dreadnought. So Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 1 colorless creature. It's an artifact creature with trample 12/12. When Phyrexian Dreadnought comes into play, sacrifice any number of creatures with total power of 12 or more, or bury Phyrexian Dreadnought. It's from Mirage. So in Legacy, there's a little known deck called Stifle Knot, where you play cards like Illusionary Mask and the namesake of Stifle. And when you're casting the Dreadnought, that's a trigger. And so if you make that trigger go away, you don't have to sacrifice the creatures, and you just get a 12/12 Trampler.
For 1 mana.
And when you go through the list of all the 1/1s in Gatherer, just the 1 converted mana cost, they're pretty small. You know, Death Shadow can get there with a little bit of work, but this is just, it's a 12/12 Trampler. You know, you look at the art, Pete Ventnor's, this is just this is so emblematic, and borrow a card from Ruben here, borrow a word from Ruben here. Just, you look at this from Mirage, they just don't make art like this anymore. They don't make creatures like this anymore. It's just so Phyrexian and everything about it, and it just had to be up there because everything else is cute, but here's a 12/12 for 1.
I mean, recently discussed in the top 10 artifact creatures that we listed, because this is one of the most iconic cards. This was one of those cards that they in the marketing for Mirage, they're like, you know, there's a 1 mana 12/12, right? And we're like, there's a 1 mana 12/12, and like, you know, we're just talking about that for weeks and weeks and weeks until they finally show it, and you're like, oh, Wizards.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
We see how it is. But considering we went from a world of Leviathans, for example, that wasn't the worst drawback we'd ever seen in the world. But Illusionary Mask, look, let's just say, I want to read you. I want to read you the current text for it. The current Arcana, the current Gatherer official. Errata. Okay, it's a 2 mana artifact, all right? Let's begin.
Great.
X:. You may choose a creature card in your hand whose mana cost could be paid by some amount of or all of the mana you spent on X. If you do, you may cast that card face down as a 2/2 creature spell without paying its mana cost. If the creature that spell becomes as it resolves has not been turned up face up and would assign or deal damage, be dealt damage, or become tapped, instead, it's turned face up and assigns or deals damage, is dealt damage, or becomes tapped. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. Oh my god.
I'm lost already.
I don't know what happened. I need an adult. I feel bad. Just don't read the real card. Things break. I don't.
This just this was the birth of Morph as an ability. Was Illusionary Mask was sort of birthed out of or Morph was birthed out of Illusionary Mask. Yeah. Fortunately, the wording got better when they, made it reasonable going forward. This, by the way, was my number 10.
Good.
Nice.
I could not put it at number 12, which is what I would have liked to for hilarious purposes. This is the most expensive 1-drop.
Oh yes, and it's
it's not really close. Noble Hierarch's number 2. We already discussed Merchant Ship at 4 and Goblin Guide at 5. Do you have any guesses as to what number 3 is? The third most expensive 1-drop of all time. I'll give you a hint. It's multicolored.
Death Right?
Multicolored.
Nope, not That's Right.
That's all right.
It's all right. I got nothing.
Risk the Redeemed.
Oh yes, the EDH
okay, that
staple.
makes sense.
There you go. Phyrexian Dreadnought also on the reserve list, so they ain't making any more of these. And it got very, very expensive very, very fast. All right, let's move over here, turn in that corner to number 1, numero uno. And because my number 2 was higher, and because I know Aaron has a samesies hanging out, it turns out that Aaron and I have the very same number 1. As it turns out. Which means that it was my number 5. Well, there you go. So even though it literally didn't get as close to the top of the echelons as it did for Aaron and I, and even though I can certainly understand what is ultimately going to be Ruben's choice, because for reasons
process of elimination.
For reasons you're going to explain, not necessarily the process, but regardless, the point is, when you kick it old school, this is a card that comes to mind. When you think about what cards are iconic in terms of their picture, when you think about cards that are iconic in terms of the color they are associated with, things like the flavor text that I can recall on a lot of these, the idea that and one of the things that just tipped my hand a little bit, why it's number 1 and not my number 2, is because they can reprint this card in standard and be okay with it. I don't feel they could do that with the other one that we'll get to. But Aaron, tell us, what is our number one?
Our number one is Llanowar Elves. So it's just very simple. It's a 1/1 elf. It costs 1 green. You just tap it and make a green mana. It's just as simple as that. But I remember when the Dominaria previews were coming out, and there was so much excitement about this card. And there was a lot to be excited about in Dominaria, but people lost their minds. Kibler, CBM, all of those guys who love, big green decks and rule decks and things of that nature, because we hadn't seen this effect in a while. They'd given us Arbor Elf, but then they kind of played around a little bit and gave us like Sylvan Caryatid. We weren't getting 1 mana cost dorks anymore. And that was intentional. I remember there was an article, I think it was by Morrow, but it might have been Stoddard, where they very openly said, we're just not giving you that anymore. Like, that was a huge thing. Even just a green one. Like, we weren't expecting to get birds back, but we were certainly expecting to get a mana dork. And the hoops we were having to jump through to even get an elf to finally get this. And, you talked about, Evan, the way that this card affects development of a set, that you have to immediately look at your 3-drops, because you're with this card in a set, those are now 2-drops. Those are now cards that you can play on turn 2. Is Steel Leaf too good? What do the rest of your green cards look like? And so to think that Wizards gave it the green light, no pun intended, being a green card, made a lot of people very happy, and was like, okay, everybody be on your best behavior. Like, let's show Wizards that we can do this and not screw up a format, and maybe they'll give it to us again. And so it just felt really, really good to see something so safe just come back to such fanfare.
You want to see some real ridiculousness. This was when they tried to remove Llanowar Elves from Magic. Back in Magic 2014, and they said, guys, we can't have a single creature with a plural name.
Right.
Who cares about tradition and memories and growing up at one with Magic and playing it years ago and all the things that makes it important? Because if they put Elvish Mystic in Dominaria, we wouldn't have been half as excited. No, they gave us the original Llanowar Elves. We can play it right now. That is fantastic, and I love it. It's just terrific. So
absolutely.
That said, Ruben, what's my number 2 and your number 1, sir?
Well, I love the Llanowar Elves, and it's won, I think, 5 Pro Tours, which is a heck of a lot.
It's a lot.
But for my money, you need everything. You need it all. And short of being banned, this card's never been banned. However, there is a soft ban on ever putting it in a set anymore because it would be too good. One of the most iconic pieces of art of all time. One of the most iconic creatures of all time. Obviously has won multiple Pro Tours. It's in the Vintage Cube. It has the most combined top 8s of any 1-drop of all time between Grand Prix and Pro Tours. Wow. And for me personally, it is the first play set of a rare that I got signed by the artist. When I was 13 years old, I went to Origins, and Mark Poole was there. I got him to sign 4 copies of different languages of Llanowar, of Birds of Paradise. Yep. Birds of Paradise is a 1 green mana. Mine were called Mana Birds.
Oh.
Back in the day.
Summon Mana Birds. Now it's a creature type bird. It's an 0/1 with flying, and it says tap, add 1 mana of any color. It is an indelible piece of my personal history. It has been printed in sets over 20 times, much less Pro Tour promotional decks and other promo versions. The Paradis Vogel was one of the foreign copies of this card that I had. Nice. An M11 promo version that I traded for in college that was near and dear to my heart. It's been printed over 20 times and yet is still one of the most expensive 1-drops, just because you want so many copies of it. It sees play in one of Modern's, if not Modern's, most popular deck right now, which is actually the Bant Spirits deck, despite not being a spirit. You see usually as a one of supporting Noble Hierarch.
Yeah.
Noble Hierarch number 5, essentially.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it saw play in decks like Fires, Urnum Stompy, plenty of decks over the history. Oh, and like Uri Peleg's world's winning Doran deck, for example.
Doran.
Just so ubiquitous, so unique. They'll never print anything like it.
No, I mean,
there's no Mystic of Paradise coming.
No,
where they're going to try to take away.
It was close.
Yeah, but it was 2 mana, and 2 is not 1.
Attack. I mean, there are times where your birds do get, if you're playing anything with counters, you can give it counters, and you can, if you're playing Gavany Township, it can very easily pivot into a win con.
Oh, absolutely. I've certainly suited up a Sword of Fire of a Feast and Famine into a Birds of Paradise.
How does it hold the sword with its little beak?
Just carries it around in its little claws.
I mean, until all the way through 5th edition, it had mana birds as its type line, which was amazing. In 5th edition, they started going off about mana sources, and mana sources can't be countered or responded to, and all this other stuff. So Dark Ritual all of a sudden was a mana source, so you can't counter Dark Ritual anymore. That was weird. And in 8th edition, it showed up, and then it disappeared, and it didn't show up again until Ravnica. And one of the things that got people jazzed about Ravnica City of Guilds was not only these crazy shocklands, but oh my God, Birds is back. And because Birds is back,
original Ravnica,
yeah, all of these things are falling into place, and it was just another reason why Ravnica was just hugely successful. This is just one of the best creatures ever made. It is my number 2 for a reason. I love it to death. I just feel like they just can't print it in standard anymore. Like, even Hierarch was like almost like a little better than half of Birds of Paradise, right? Had Exalted, which wasn't really fair, but still, that's about as much as they're going to give you is something that makes 3 colors, not something that makes all the colors.
All 5, yeah.
All the colors. So, that said, that was our top 10 converted mana cost creatures of all time. You will see them on the screen now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to go here to our final slide as it pulls up. Whoop, whoop. So I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching or listening, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, and do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.